I messed up tonight. I lost another fight. I still mess up, but I'll just start again. I keep falling down. I keep on hitting the ground. I always get enough. See what's next. Birds don't just fly. They fall down and get up. Nobody learns without getting it wrong. I won't give up, no, I won't give in till I reach the end and then I'll start again. No, I won't leave. I wanna try everything. I wanna try even though I could fail.
Welcome back, everyone, to minute 22 of the Zootopia Minute Podcast, the minute-by-minute podcast where we review, analyze, and scrutinize the hit, award-winning movie that's not La La Land or Moonlight, Zootopia. I'm joined by my host, Simo, who just came back from an awesome convention in Seattle. Welcome
Yes,
back.
indeed. I am glad to be back. That was a very fun weekend. Emerald City Comic Con. If you saw me there, cool. If not, whatever.
Awesome. And I'm also your host, Chaco, and I'm actually going to a furry convention in 2 weeks where I will be mingling among the furry kind, trying to infiltrate, see what makes them tick, and hopefully hand out some more of our little fancy business cards to them.
We ourselves are not furries, as we've made clear.
We are
many a time.
explicitly not furries. We have no relationship with furries, no association with furries. We do not own fursuits. We do not have Zoosonas. Fursonas.
That's actually the
Zoosonas.
motto. That's like our tagline for this podcast. It's we're not furries. Zootopia Minute. We're not furries.
No, actually, that's actually a funny point because I was on Fur Affinity the other day. Again, not a furry. I was just doing some research. I was on Fur
No, of
Affinity.
course.
And there was an ad. Someone who does furry art posted an ad on Fur Affinity, and the ad, when you click, it just links to their user page on Fur Affinity. And their user page, I don't know why they filled it out, but asked what your sona is, and the person put, "I am not a furry."
I am not a furry.
I am not a furry again and again. So this person made it explicit that they are not furries, yet they're advertising on Fur Affinity. So I'm like, all right, whatever.
I'm not a rapper, so stop rapping at me. Stop
All right.
furring at me, you furries. Oh boy, I'm excited for this minute.
We have a fantastic minute. I think
Yeah.
there's chocked full of a bunch of fun little goodies. And it might be one of my more favorite minutes.
So, it's minute 22. That means if you're following along, you want to be at timestamp 2200 to 2259. And it begins just as Judy spots, in the reflection of that windshield of the car she was ticketing, little Toot Toot, the tiny little baby fennec fox that she met along with Nick, spots them in the reflection, turns around, but they're up to something a little fishy, and she ends up following them. And our minute ends as we see Nick handing off some little popsicles to a line of lemmings that have just come out of what I guess is a bank or something. So
And if you want to be very specific, it ends exactly when the second lemming in the line is about to put the popsicle in his mouth, but doesn't. So
we're very
cliffhanger for that
precise
lemming.
here at Zootopia Minute.
He's not
We care
able
about
to
these
enjoy that
things.
popsicle until we tell him to.
Oh boy. So, first impressions. Obviously, this minute is a bit of a revelation for us. We've had this impression that Nick is a very upstanding, articulate fella, but it seems that this may not actually be the case. There's something sort of nefarious going on, huh?
Yeah, I think Judy's a little bit shocked that Toot Toot is able to drive a van. And,
Yeah.
and he's still sucking on his pacifier as he's driving the van. But yeah, he does not act like a baby should.
Well, you know, kids grow up fast.
Yeah, I guess you could say they were caught red-handed. Well, not yet caught, but there's a lot of red everywhere.
It's funny because the popsicles are red. I see what you did there.
Well, it's also funny because I'm actually drinking a fruit punch Jones soda, which is a red
Jones Bros.
soda, and it looks exactly like the liquid they were drinking. So I was just drinking along while they were making the little red
Lots of
juices.
red. We had a blue episode, didn't we? Where you were talking about eating everything blue. I guess this will be the red one. Oh boy.
Yeah, don't listen to that episode if you want to not lose your appetite. Okay, so continuing on. So at first it's a little bit suspicious because why would you buy a giant popsicle and start melting it down? And when I was watching this in theaters, I was confused. I was like, oh, okay, like, they're up to something that's out of the normal, but it's not technically illegal yet.
Yeah, so I mean, at this point, Judy's just confused, right? She turns around, she sees little Toot Toot. She's so ready to go and greet him, but she's like, wait, what's going on? We see a gutter with all this red liquid coming out of it, and they're collecting it in jars. And we pan up to that roof to see that Nick has that giant popsicle on the roof, melting, and then pouring down off the roof tiles, which does not seem very sanitary. But
they're animals, you know,
Yeah.
they eat slop.
yeah, and again, at this juncture, we can say that, again, nothing necessarily illegal going on. She's confused. Maybe they're just those people that like to let their popsicles melt and then eat it, you know?
Well,
some
you
people
know-
like to stir their ice cream up and get it nice and melty first.
I have tried that before. I've tried melting a popsicle just to drink it to see what it tastes like, and it tastes that good, actually.
It tastes like diabetes.
Yeah. Well, also, because they are predators, she could have assumed that they were draining blood at first before she saw the popsicle.
Ooh, that would
That
be
would have been a
morbid.
bit scary. That might have triggered her a
Yeah,
bit. You
we
know?
just pan up and it's not the popsicle. It's like it's like a rabbit on a spit or something. It's just some impaled woodland
That's
creature.
a lot of liquid they would be collecting from that little rabbit.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Oh boy, that's a great image. But no, it really is just the popsicle, and it's their property. They're right to melt that popsicle, so nothing going on yet.
public, are they allowed to melt it there? Because that's not their property that they're melting it on.
Do we know it's not their property?
Well, we do know something that is their property, the van.
The van, well, unless they stole it. But it's a pretty dope van. This is one of those cool old school
I'm
gang
not sure
vans,
why it's a
or like
trope.
the people that.
Like, in a lot of cartoon shows and movies and television shows I've seen growing up as a kid, there's always that one crazy guy who all the kids think it's cool. He has a giant van, it's normally purple, and it's painted with some giant buff
purple.
barbarian, like standing over a pile of corpses holding up a sword and screaming with a lady in his arms. It's
Like
always,
a very
it's always-
curvaceous woman, sort of a damsel in distress.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Barbarian or He-Man or that kind of thing.
I'm
this
wondering
heroic...
if that's a meme carried over from a previous generation or trope that we just haven't picked on because we're
don't know.
90s kids.
When they had the back of the van open, you could see what looked a lot like a Harley Davidson sticker as well. So I don't know. And it's one of those beat up old vans. The door on the driver's side looks like it was a replacement door. It doesn't match the
Yeah.
rest of the van. But this picture is crazy interesting. I think
Oh,
we
yeah,
paused it and we tried looking at it a little bit. And you took a look in the concept book.
Oh yeah, I wanted to take a good look at it. So I looked in the concept book, and what it had was, it looked like they were wolves. I was assuming since they're foxes, they would be foxes, but it looked like it was a gray wolf holding on to a white female wolf. But the wolf had on Aztec attire, so he had a giant feather headdress, gold jewelry, and behind him was a giant Aztec stone calendar, not to be confused with the Mayan calendar everyone talks about. But when I paused a minute, the Aztec calendar was absent. So I actually went online to look up the current version of this image, and apparently it's the exact same foxes, same pose, except they have different attire on, and in the background it's not an Aztec calendar, but it's a lightning bolts, a few lightning bolts. So
Interesting.
they just changed it slightly, but it's the exact same character. They just changed the clothing and background, so...
Well, maybe they wanted to make it less overt of a reference to like a real world thing.
Yeah.
Aztecs. Are there now animal Aztecs in this universe?
Yeah, so that's not something we were talking about earlier. Before we started the episode, we were assuming that this is proof that there is Mesoamerican culture in this world of Zootopia, and we kind of we did a little bit of research on what this piece was based off, and I'm not going to even try to pronounce the artist name or the name of the art piece, but it's actually based off a painting by a Mexican artist with what looks like an Aztec god or hero rescuing some damsel in distress.
Yeah. This is the type of truck, or van you see. You go out, you're driving through the Southwest, and there's some guy selling like turquoise bracelets out of the back of this truck.
Yeah, that's something.
It's like that kind of vibe I'm getting from it, the traveling merchant in the
What's with
American
turquoise?
Southwest.
I never understood turquoise.
Turquoise is cool. It's a color and it's a rock.
I like turquoise. It's like one of my favorite colors, but it's like, what was the point of selling gaudy jewelry with turquoise and vans?
Because it's good for your soul. It's spirit jewelry.
Okay.
when I was I forget how old I was in elementary school though, and my family took a spring break to Sedona, Arizona, and that area is like,
Sedona, Arizona.
yeah, it's like a
3 times fast.
hippie capital of that area, kind of. You go there and there's tourist maps that have on the maps they say here's a vortex, there's a vortex, energy vortexes, where the energy lines of the Earth line up and intersect.
That seems to be a very, very common thing.
Just go out there with your
tourist traps.
dowsing rods and find where the chi lines up and just sit there and meditate and make your
So much
make
cultural
your turquoise.
appropriation, that statement. No, it's funny. Like, it's why are we even talking about this? But it is kind of funny that there are a lot of like gravity points or gravity spots or center of the Earth spots and all that stuff around the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Like as tourist traps, and they're all, most of the time they can be explained as optical illusions of houses being
Right,
built
yeah.
on just slopes and hills.
I think there's one in Oregon. I don't remember specifically where, but it's this place where there's a lot of weird physics
that one is
illusions
called
going on.
the
I
gravity.
think it is
spot?
the Oregon vortex is like what
Yeah, it's actually I think what Gravity Falls location was based off of.
really, that's cool. I didn't know that. I
Of course, Gravity
legitimately
Falls
didn't
takes
know that.
place in the Northwest, so it kind of makes sense.
But yeah, I mean, you're right though. A lot of those things can be explained. They're gravity hills, for instance, which is where you have a very slight incline and something about the surroundings makes it look that it's sloping one way when really it's sloping the other. So you have the illusion of things rolling uphill, for instance.
It's normally after an earthquake that causes a titanic
Things will
shift in the
shift that
trees
way.
and stuff.
Isn't that
Yeah.
interesting?
It's
Man.
fascinating how the mind has all these optical illusions that can play tricks on you.
Yeah, the Pacific Science Center here in Seattle. I don't know if it's still there because I haven't been in a while, but they had an artificial gravity hill that they built, but it was really over the top. You'd walk through it and it was so disorienting. You're staring straight down and it almost made you feel sick because you're walking down this thing and you really are moving down, but it looks like you're going up because of the way that they like tilted the surroundings. And it's the freakiest thing in the world. And it worked both ways, which was also weird. If you went one way, it felt like you were going up, and the other way, it felt like you were going down, but both ways were the opposite of what was true. But I love those kinds of things. And when they naturally occur, that's just amazing to me. I love it.
That's crazy.
So yeah, this van, which is how we got on this topic, they drive off, and Judy turns to the camera kind of and is sort of thinking to herself like, what's going on? So we then see a scene transition, and now they're in the snowy area, which I forget the precise name of, but we know it has changed because the music also changes. I don't know if you noticed that, but there's this little dun da 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 tune going on during this scene, and when we switch to the snowy area, because those buildings have that sort of Russian Slavic architecture with the spires on top and everything, it switched and it started to sound like it was a sitar or something. It was cool. Attention to detail. Did you notice that at all?
I actually did not, no. So
It was cool. I love what they do with the music in this. Because I think a few minutes ago, we saw, I think you pointed out another example of something just like that, but I don't remember what it was. Do you?
yeah, normally music is something that I really, really like. That's the one thing that makes me, it's normally a tipping point for movies that I like. Like Batman v Superman, hated the film, but I love the music. So, yeah, I didn't really notice it this time. And Zootopia wasn't known for its music. It didn't win any awards for music. That was La La Land.
Yeah.
But,
well, what's so crazy about this kind of music, too, is you have music pieces, right? Things that are composed as songs in the media, right? Like if it's a musical, the songs the characters are singing. But then there's also the score. And the score is always really interesting because they have to figure out how to make the music align with the animation. And I think a really great example of this, I cannot remember the composer's name, unfortunately, and I think of this because I just got back from Emerald City Comic Con, where Rob Paulson and Jess Harnell and Tress MacNeille and Maurice LaMarche, who are all voice actors from Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain. I just remember how in that show, in those shows, the scores were fantastic, and you had little individual bits of music lining up with action in the scene. Like, someone's climbing up a ladder really quickly and you have this xylophone going, but it's part of the piece and it lines up in the song. And it's like, that's gotta be, how they figure that out it's incredible.
One thing where I really noticed it was actually, I saw the Lego Batman movie a few days ago.
Ooh, and how was that?
Fantastic film. Ooh. I loved it.
I want to see it.
I've had this much fun at the movies in a long time. I forgot movies could be fun. But again, the one thing that I noticed was the musical score. The composer, I think he worked under Hans Zimmer during the original Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy. But the piece he did for this movie, it was like riffs on all the Hans Zimmer themes, but also the Danny Elfman themes, and even the 60s Batman. It was fantastic. Like, and he like planned, it seems like, yeah, he did plan it out with events that happened in the movie. Like, there was a scene where they were battling skeletons and the bones would dissipate, like fall apart, and you hear the xylophone when they were kicking the skeletons around. So little stuff like that, nice touches. I like that.
I love when that happens. Well, as we're following this van into this snowy area, we see a little bit more into what's going on. We have little Toot Toot stepping into the snow, making paw prints, and laying down popsicle sticks, and Nick is taking that big jar of red liquid of goat's blood, or whatever it is, and pouring it into these little paw impressions. So they're making little mini popsicles out of the big popsicle.
Yeah, so now we kind of get an idea for what they're trying to do. And I will say I actually do own a popsicle, so I do cosplay as Nick Wilde at some cons, and I have my own little pop-pop that I made out of red plastic.
I'm guessing it's not actually ice, it's not frozen.
No, I could probably make a nice one, but it wouldn't last for even a few minutes.
No, you wouldn't want to bring
convention.
that around in a convention, for sure.
Yeah, actually, I was cosplaying as Soren back when I got started in the Bernie fandom. I had a plastic pie, so I was cosplaying as Soren. Someone who was cosplaying as Soren brought a real pie to a con, and he was actually sharing it with people, so everyone could come up and grab it with their fingers, and it was like...
That's a little weird, yeah, I don't know about that.
That's where con flu and con crud kind of
Man,
spews.
I'm at cons, I always take to using the hand sanitizer dispensers they place every so often. I use them whenever I see them, just because I do not want to get sick after con. I do not want that con crud, and that's a quick way to get it.
Yeah.
It's like I saw a video of some Homestucks at a convention, and they were in those troll costumes, and they were all passing around the same bottle of Faygo and taking sips out of it. I'm like, oh my gosh.
I had no idea what
doubt
you
you
just
guys all
said.
know each other. This is gross.
I had no idea what Faygo or Homestuck is. I don't want to know.
You have so much to learn.
So
much to learn, Jocko.
Actually, now that you brought that up, back when I was kind of involved in South Park fandom, when I go to cons, there would be like little South Park fan meetups. Mm-hmm. But most of the time, the meetups consisted of teenage girls dressing as the South Park kids.
Yeah!
And these are complete strangers. But then what would be freaky is they'll start kissing each other. They'll make out and start, so people can have photo ops. Like, for example, some girl will be dressed as Stan Marsh and some girl will be dressed as Kyle. And these girls don't know each other, but then they start kissing, so people for photo ops. And there's like, that's actually
Tweak X Craig, OTP.
That is a way to transmit a lot of germs. So I don't even want to know what their parents are thinking. But
yeah, it's funny you mentioned like it's all these girls dressed as the characters. I was thinking this at the con because I noticed that anytime you have this happens at anime cons especially. You'll have people cosplaying male characters, and if it's the type that's meant to be sort of handsome but young looking, oftentimes it'll be a girl cosplaying. And anytime I see that, it's like, look, okay, first of all, get this out of the way. Cosplay is for everyone. You want to cosplay something, you go ahead and do it. Don't let anyone tell you can't cosplay a certain character if you don't have
unless you're white and trying to cosplay as black.
Well, yeah, anyway. Cosplay's for everybody. However, I think it's cheating if you're a girl and you're already a girl, so you have like nice smooth features and you're trying to cosplay this pretty boy character. You're already at an advantage. Do you understand?
You're just jealous now because they're
saying?
stepping on your turf.
On my turf.
Because normally you're the one who... I think we spoke about in previous episodes, but you have I guess you say you have a more baby-like face, or...
Well, I do, but I still, like I have to shave still.
Yeah.
These people
you grow
don't.
your sideburns,
they get perfectly smooth
you look
faces.
younger than you look. That's why you're trying to grow out your sideburns. But, I mean, the realm that these girls cosplay in is kind of the same realm that you cosplay in, and they're kind of one-upping you right there.
Yeah, and I'm saying you're cheating because you're like you already have the sort of features that these characters have. Despite being male, they have these sort of not feminine per se, but more like gentle or smooth features. And it's like you have a girl cosplaying the character. It's way easier to emulate that, especially if it's an anime character because the big eyes and everything.
Yeah.
So I always feel like
it's more popular.
You get a little handicap if you're a girl cosplaying a male character. In that
I wonder why it's popular recently in like the last decade to have these more feminine male characters, and because I especially remember when that movie with Jack Frost when it came out, Like,
Oh,
all
the
the
Rise
gir-
of the Guardians or
yeah,
whatever?
and all the girls, like the best cosplays are all done by females.
That's what I mean. That's
Yeah, it's
exactly what
like-
I mean. It's that type of character, like the
why
young,
is it
handsome.
the pretty boy that seems to be like more common in fiction now instead of the strong man, or I don't know what else there is.
Well, it's like how I was. If you compare, for instance, modern Doctor Who with old Doctor Who, and all the classic Doctors, 1 through 7, unless you're counting that '90s movie as well. They were all like
McGann?
older.
McGann.
They were all older gentlemen, right?
yeah.
They're old people with dark curly hair and like wrinkled skin, and it's
Same as
like,
Capaldi.
they're middle-aged people, right? Yeah. Well, okay, but then the reboot happened, and you have Christopher Eccleston, you have David Tennant, you have Matt Smith. These are all younger people again, and they have that modern sort of pretty boy aesthetic going on. So it's kind of interesting how that's changed over time, like how what we view as being important. It made me think maybe the actor being handsome and likable and having a sex appeal wasn't important in the original Doctor Who. I mean, the first Doctor was like 80-something years old, the actor, right? But now we've had it rebooted and we started with all these younger actors. And yeah, now there's Peter Capaldi and he's on his way out now, but that was something I kind of liked about him, is that they had another older actor as well.
Actually, I just thought the perfect term that describes this. Remember in the mid-2000s when the term metrosexual was used? And I just remembered it because of the South Park episode
Yeah.
with the crab people. But apparently the term
Metrosexual, that's a good
metrosexual was
way to
for like, I
wrap
guess,
it up.
straight or heterosexual men.
A straight guy that is into the sort of gay, like what has come to be known as the gay look.
Yeah,
sort
like
of.
they like the stereotypical gay look, I guess. They like to keep up their body image. They like to
Yes.
moisturize, and I don't know what else. So.
Yeah,
To dye their
exactly.
hair, frost their hairs, I don't know what it's called.
So it's
We went off
interesting how
topic.
that's but it's interesting, I think, anyway.
Yeah.
So on the topic of pretty boys and girls cheating at cosplay, popsicles. Yeah. So this is interesting. We see them laying out all these popsicles, and then the next thing we see is that they have moved on back sort of into the downtown area. Nick's pulling on a big cart that says popsicles, P-A-W, popsicles, it's another pun, $2 a pop, and is handing them out to these lemmings that march out of this building. One of them sees that there's popsicles being sold and then starts walking towards Nick, and then the rest follow behind, because there's that old joke that lemmings would follow each other off cliffs. you know?
Yeah, and actually, that's not a true scientific fact. And in fact, it was actually a Disney
it's
Channel.
not.
It was a Disney documentary that started that myth. Time back
Yeah.
to Disney.
That's crazy. Well, it makes me think of, did you ever play the computer game Lemmings?
I did not know.
It was this old school game. I don't know if it still exists really, but it was a game where you had this sort of environment filled with randomly generated terrain, and you had a group of lemmings you had to get to some goal. And they didn't really look like real lemmings. They're just these moving dots because it was really low res. But you could assign them different roles. Like you tunnel straight down, you dig sideways, you build a wall right here, you build a platform, you self-destruct. And you had to give them these different commands to try and meet a certain quota of lemmings that got to the goal. So that's like, whenever I think of lemmings, I think of those games.
Interesting.
Let us know in the comments, guys, if you remember that too. Because I don't know if I've talked to anyone that remembers those. It was just
I
a
don't
fever
remember those
dream
old
or
games.
something. It's that Mandela effect thing or whatever.
But I guess for people who are confused about the lemming thing, I guess just quickly, the lemmings thing is a joke that lemmings will follow each other off the cliff. That's why you saw one lemming see the popsicles and all the other ones follow. How that got started was there was a Disney documentary about lemmings, but they couldn't film them in their actual environment. So they created a platform where they tried to make a mock environment, and it kind of spun like a giant disc. They were spinning it so fast to try to force the lemmings off. So the lemmings you saw tumbling were actually on an artificial environment where people forced them to fall off.
That's bizarre.
And that's
really
Disney.
bizarre.
So it comes around. And
Yeah.
I guess the other joke people may or may not recognize is it says Lemming Brothers on the bake.
Yep, Lemming Brothers.
This
And
is
they
a
all look, and they
fantastic
all
fun.
walk in the exact same way. I'm sure they just copy and pasted the animation cycle for each of them. They're all identical, wearing little business suits. It's kind of
I
cute.
wonder how many kids got the Lemming Brothers jokes.
Now, so that's basically the end of the minute. The last thing we see is the lemmings beginning to buy popsicles and start eating them, right?
Very unhygienic popsicles. They
Yeah.
melted it on a nasty
Well-
gutter that collects rainwater, and then they used their nasty feet prints to fill the
Yeah, so
popsicles
totally
up.
sanitary. And we know, I'm sure Judy is upset about this considering she, jumped on that elephant guy for not wearing the elephant trunk glove for the ice cream. So we know Judy cares about this fact very
She cares
deeply.
about hygiene. She's
For sure,
very
for
OCD.
sure. So here's what I wanted to figure out, because we see each of these popsicles that Nick is selling, he's selling for $2, $2 a popsicle. So because we had this discussion the last minute, and I think a little bit even before that, about how much is a Zootopia dollar worth and what sort of effect does this have? If you have animals of different sizes, they probably have different economic needs because they consume more or less. So here's now what we know. We know that these parking tickets are $25. That giant popsicle was $15. He's selling these for $2, and the lemmings seem like they want to buy it. So I did the math because I wanted to figure this out. I sort of paused it when we could see all the rows of popsicle molds in the snowy area as they were pouring them out. And I tried counting how many there were. So there were 10 rows of 10 popsicles long, but each row was also 2 of them. So it was groups of 2 in each thing. So you end up with 200. So we can assume that he got 200 popsicles out of the one giant popsicle. Okay. Making that assumption, you're selling those for $2 a pop. That's $400 netting, right? Mm-hmm. So you paid $15 for it. That means if you sell all these popsicles, you're grossing $385. So it's a hustle. That's what they're doing. It's a hustle. They're making money.
Yeah, so I guess we could assume that those tiny popsicles that would work for lemmings would be equivalent to one of our popsicles in the real world.
Yeah, well, here's the question it raises too. Those lemmings are clearly willing to pay $2, to shell out $2 for one of those popsicles, right? So then, do we assume that they just make as much money as any other species might, but because they need to consume less, it's like, oh, I can splurge or whatever on this popsicle. $2 is nothing, really. It's $2 to anyone else. It's an interesting question. I really want to know.
Yeah, so I guess we'll find out more when Judy gets her word. I'm sure she'll have a word, these 2 foxes.
Yeah. Judy is probably very upset about this. Well, that just about does it for the minute, but I want to talk before we go about some of the cool stuff that happened over the weekend, because I was at Emerald City Comic Con. Woohoo.
And I was following the news. Apparently, there's a lot of crazy Marvel and DC news coming out.
Ooh, yeah, I've seen little bits of that on Twitter. Marvel, though, speaking of, Stan Lee was actually at this convention, and I went with a friend to get a poster signed by him. It was a poster of Deadpool, like his back facing the camera and his butt sticking out like huge round buttocks.
But he
it was
didn't
great.
create Deadpool.
And Stan Lee assigned him on the butt, and that was great. But it was interesting going in because it's Stan Lee. He's going to be the most popular guy at the convention. Everyone's going to want to meet him. Everyone wants a photo or an autograph. So here's the thing. They kind of have no choice but to make it somewhat mechanical, right? Like, all right, next, move along, go. All right, get your money out, item, sign it. All right, and you're on your way, which seems impersonal, right? But when you have someone that's that popular, there really is no other way to do it and still have everyone get a little bit of time with him.
Except he goes to every single Comic-Con.
Not every single one. He's been to
You could expect
this
him to be at
one,
almost
like,
every
once or
Comic-Con. Every
twice
Comic-Con
before,
I've
maybe.
been to in the last 5 years, he has been there.
He gets around, and he's up there in age too, and he seems to be doing well for his age, which is nice.
I think he said this was his last one, right? Was that the
Did
big
he?
news? I remember reading articles saying this will be his last Emerald City.
Oh, last Emerald City. Okay, but still maybe other cons.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, but I mean, we got up to the front, he signed it, and I'm like, hey, it's great to meet you, Stan. And he's like, yes, thank you. Like, he was nice. He seemed nice, and he was smiling, and he was cheerful the whole time. So that was pretty cool.
That's not even his real name.
Is it?
No.
Is it not?
No, Stan Lee is a pen name he chose.
What's his real name?
It's like Leibowitz or something.
Oh, is it Stan, though?
It's Stanley Martian Lieber.
Stanley Martian?
Oh, Martin, sorry. Stanley
Martin.
Martin
Okay,
Lieber.
I was going to say.
So his pen name is basically his first name, Stan Lee and Stan Lee.
There you go. That makes sense. I can see that working out.
Yeah, I'm sure the thoughts of Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko don't pass his mind when he's smiling there at the con, signing a poster for a character he didn't create.
Whatever.
Anyways, it sounds like you had fun. So you're a big
did.
cosplayer, and you were tweeting a bunch of fantastic photos this weekend. So were you hanging out with any? I saw you hang out with a Rarity. Who was that?
That was a friend of mine. She did Rarity on the first day we went, and then Derpy, because I was the doctor, and then Pinkie Pie on the last day. Emerald City is a 4-day con, actually. And
One of the rare 4-day cons.
yeah, well, it only recently became that. I think this is only the second year they've done it. Maybe the third? No, I think it's the second.
I have done 4-day cons before. They are crazy.
So it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I bought Saturday and Sunday passes because last year I didn't go to this con because I had assumed that Everfree, the pony con I work for in Seattle, would get a booth because we'd always gotten a booth. But we ended up not getting a booth, and so then I was out of luck. I had no passes. So this year I preemptively bought them just in case. And again, we didn't have a booth. And I think the reason why is that Emerald City was put under new management. They got bought out by ReedPop, which is a big event management company that also runs, I think, New York Comic Con and PAX and a few other things. Yeah. And most people that I talk to, ReedPop leaves a bad taste in their mouth.
Actually, the stuff you were just talking about is actually going to be a big chapter in my convention history book.
Really?
The fact that a lot of these fan-run cons are being bought out by pro-con companies, and then the fact that the pro-cons have to make it more cold cookie cutter where they just passage you mechanically through lines.
Yeah, well, and I don't like that. But the thing is, you can still be run by a big company and have a good event, but it's just that's not evident from what my experience is with this con in the past. I first went in 2012, and that was 5 years ago. Ugh, so weird to think about. But back then it was a lot smaller. It was still like a big event, but it was closer to SakuraCon. Now it's huge. I think Emerald City now is the 3rd largest Comic-Con in the country.
It's very, I know Emerald City along with San Diego and C2E2 are like the big Comic Cons when you think about the Comic Cons in this country.
And they say that Emerald City is known, like has a reputation of still maintaining a heavy emphasis on comics, whereas a lot of other Comic Cons have sort of strayed away from it, have gotten more towards television and movies. But yeah, like just going in the past, it always felt like more of a community thing because the reason I go to cons has evolved over time, and the community aspect of it is what's most important to me. And now it just seems like they're cutting down on community run panels. Now it's all industry stuff. They're not letting other conventions exhibit anymore because it wasn't just Everfree that got bumped. It was SakuraCon and like all these other conventions that would usually have booths there. And also their website sucks, and I tend to blame ReedPop for that as well, just because. So it was a fun event. I had a lot of fun. I got to meet some cool voice actors, a few of which I'd met before. A lot of the people from Animaniacs were there. I got a nice poster with Yakko, Wacko, Dot, and Pinky and the Brain sort of in superhero outfits around the Space Needle. And I had that signed by everybody who was there. Maurice LaMarche, who does the Brain. Rob Paulson, who does Pinky and Yakko, Jess Harnell, who does Wacko, and Tress McNeil, who did Dot. And Tress was the only one not there 5 years ago when I first met those guys. So pretty cool poster. I'm really glad I got that. Overall, Emerald City Comic Con, it's a really fun con. And if you're in the Seattle area or travel for cons, definitely check it out. I totally recommend it, despite its shortcomings. It's an awesome, awesome event.
Awesome. So definitely sounds like you'll be returning to it next year?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
If I can, if I have the time. I'd like to. It has a special place in my heart because it was the first con I ever went to, I guess.
Well, since we are a Zootopia podcast, did you see any Zootopia cosplays or Zootopia-themed things? Especially so short after the Oscars.
Yeah, I did, but not a lot. I only saw maybe like 4 different groups of people doing Zootopia cosplay, and I gave them cards for the podcast and all that. So if you guys are listening right now, hi, thanks for tuning in.
Did you get any pictures of them?
I didn't. I take less and less photos every time I go to a convention because it's like, why? I don't need to take photos. I'm just going to experience it at the time, and I can find cool photos of it after the fact, you know?
Yeah, sounds like me.
Yeah, so I never really take photos anymore unless I'm somewhere brand new. But no, it was a good time, and I'm glad I went. And you should definitely try to make it out here for some of the local Seattle cons besides Everfree, Chaco. Seriously.
Well, the problem is Sakura always falls on BabsCon weekend.
Yeah, but SakuraCon is better.
Emerald City normally falls on, I don't know, always falls on. But I'll try to make it. I'll try to make it next year now that I know you're there. Maybe we can get a booth for our podcast. Who knows?
That'd be fun. Well, do you have anything more to add?
I think that's it. If you enjoy our podcast, just make sure to follow us on Twitter at Zootopia Minute at Twitter because we tweet fantastic stuff. Oh, and we want to give a shout out to the Zootopia team who liked some of our tweets. So thanks to the director and some of the producers on the Zootopia movie for liking our tweets.
For sure. Thank you very much for that. If you want to follow us individually, mine is at Coledaniel on Twitter, COLEDAIGNEAULT. And you?
I am at meta_artist. That is META_ARTIST.
All right, awesome. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Take care. Bye.